Hello everyone, this is Flashy Gordy. I'm here at the NORDIC Blockchain Conference organized by Nordic Blockchain Association, and I'm here with Mike CONTE from Coinweb, and we just decided to do a small team talks here. So first of all, Mike, let me ask you, who are you and what's your role on Coinweb?
I am Coinweb's CTO and co-founder, and so I'm responsible for overall technical strategy and the product, and also I spend a lot of time on the road talking to potential partners and in some cases stakeholders and investors.
That sounds good. And what would you say are Coinweb's key features?
Well, I would say in the big picture, I mean, I've been involved in technology for a long time, so I've been part of the evolution, into personal computing, into the internet, into smartphones, into digital entertainment because of my long experience at Microsoft and other startups. And to me, this is like the most interesting time in the market because you're talking about a brand new technology that's been around for 10 years, but it's still new in the sense that very few people use it. So at a conference like this, you'll hear blockchain, 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 but really it's 0.3% of the world uses it. So of course you're going to have things like liquidity issues and pricing volatility. But what we need to do is make blockchain mainstream, and then once it's mainstream, then all of those issues will of course be resolved, and we'll be using it for the things we hear about at the show, like supply chain management, for all the things which it's known for, giving more transparency, more accountability, more scalability for apps. So really we're about making it mainstream. We do that in two ways. We make it more personal, and we make it more connected. So the personal part is today, if you've done any crypto, you get one of those huge hash addresses, which is supposedly going to make things more secure, but in reality it's less secure because people lose them. They put them in an insecure place, they get hacked, they forget them. I've heard as much as 30% of all hash addresses have been lost. People can't recover them. And it's very similar to what we have in the internet. The internet itself runs on IP addresses, so there's all these numbers on the internet, but we use names. We use email addresses, we use web addresses. That's powered by something called the DNS, the domain name system, and we're building that for the blockchain called the CNS. And in fact, we're building it with an old friend of mine, Paul Makapetris, who is the inventor of the DNS. So that's the first piece we're doing, more personal names for the blockchain to make it as easy as email. And the second thing is, again, at a conference like this, or if you follow the industry, you know that there's a lot of innovation in the blockchain. There are people making new coins for various features. This one's personal or anonymous, or this one's inexpensive, this one has great performance, but each one is like an island. It's like a silo, it's not connected. So you might be somebody who's making a D app that you say, I'd like to have features from multiple blockchains, or you might be building something of great scale. You need the scalability of having multiple blockchains, and you've got to connect them. And that's what our hyperlayer does. So it's a layer 2 protocol. It sits above the other blockchains, and it connects to them underneath. So you can actually create a D app which uses more than one. You can more easily exchange between them if you're using multiple blockchains, and all of that is surfaced in a very easy to use multi-currency wallet, which is part of our platform.
That sounds good. So you're connecting all the blockchains, you're making it more easy to use, yes, and you're giving them some little bit more easier names like the DNS system, exactly, because the names that we have now that were developed by the cryptographers and the tech guys are not really usable for normal people.
But not for normal people, which you can tell in the statistics. And then, just like those other innovations like the internet, like email, like e-commerce, right now it's not very important, and people saying, well, it's not going to be used very broadly. We're going to look back in 5 years and say, I can't believe we used hash addresses. I can't believe you used to have a different wallet for every blockchain. And that's our investment sort of across the platform of blockchain to sort of foster all that innovation, just like Microsoft did, or Google did, or Apple did for smartphones.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I see that perspective. And
you see it also from some of the key thought leaders. So, Vitalik just said this in a recent talk. Charlie Lee said it about Litecoin. When people say, what's the next innovation? What do we have to do? I think a lot of people were expecting some sort of answer. Well, we need a better hash algorithm or something. He says, we actually have to make it easy for regular people to spend like $20 in crypto.
Definitely. So we're looking at adoption. Of course, we had the big hype wave last year, and the technology wasn't really ready. We had all the tech guys who had been doing it, and we had the economic philosophers, but there hasn't really been made the adoption layer yet for the normal guy to use it, and that's what you're trying to help create, exactly, I can hear.
Exactly.
And that answers my next question, which would be, why does the world need need Coinweb? And I guess that answered that. So let's go to the next question. Let's go a little bit on here. I want to hear a little bit about how you see your competitors. Who do you see as your competitors, and where do you see Coinweb having an edge towards these competitors?
Well, I don't think anybody's in direct competition to us, and in some ways, I think if you get too lost around the competition, you're sort of missing the big picture. We're not in a mature market where we're fighting about the last 3% of market share. All of the growth is outside of crypto. So anybody who's doing innovation in crypto, we're happy they're doing innovation in crypto. There are people that have attempted to do pieces of what we're doing. They might have a name system for a particular blockchain, but not across blockchains. They might have a connectivity layer, but it only works between these two chains, and they have to have special code. So there are people that have attempted these things. I think they recognize the same things we recognize, which is this is what you need to hit mass adoption. But nobody has the approach we have, and I would say another key differentiator is nobody has the team that we have. So, we have people that have shipped products before. It's not an exaggeration to say that people are, hundreds of millions of people are using software that our team wrote today.
Okay, and let me just grab you on that one. Now you're talking about the team. Let's talk a little bit about the team of Coinweb. How big is the team, and what are the future plans for team expansion?
Well, we have a core team of about less than a dozen. So Toby, our founder, who just finished speaking, Toby Gilbert, our CEO, is a longtime serial entrepreneur, investor, tech guy. He assembled a great team. It includes Knut Vinger, who's our chief scientist, who's also in the room and here at the show. I'm the CTO. We have marketing director, operations director. We have an engineering team in Barcelona, Scandinavia, and the Ukraine. We've been writing code for a year. And
three engineering teams?
We have 3 locations, 1 engineering team.
Okay.
Exactly. And a great bunch. I mean, really a fantastic team. I had great teams in Excel and Office and Xbox when I worked on those projects, and to me, it's always fun to work with a great team. We'll grow it, but we'll grow it as the need arises and as the growth and funding is commensurate with that.
Definitely. And what are you looking at now? Now we can talk a bit about funding, maybe. I know you had your first seed round, and you got some capital in. Are you looking to do in the future more seed rounds, ICOs? What's your plan for funding?
I think the market has changed. I mean, I think if we were having this conversation in January, it would all be about ICOs. These days, what I'm seeing is that the sort of crypto traders are mostly taking a timeout from ICOs, waiting for some certainty, which maybe they'll find, maybe they won't. But what's happening is the investors are sort of moving in. In a market that's flattered down, you have people thinking this is a great time to get a deal. So VCs are now getting very serious, and you see checks being written by Andreessen Horowitz and DFJ and Union Square and lots of also London VCs and New York VCs and Israeli VCs who either raised a new fund around crypto from fiat, not from crypto, and also some sophisticated investors and high net worth individuals who are recognizing the opportunity because they recognize, as we do, that blockchain is a really fundamental platform technology, very much like the internet. It's a good time to get in. But they have different lens. They have a much longer term lens. Their diligence is much harder and longer, and they will more likely be interested in governance or equity positions and not just ICO token positions.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we had a big talk about that before we turned on the camera, about ICOs and investment. And in that respect, let me just ask you, do you have a token, and what's your tokenomics?
We do have a token. We have a utility token. It's used for 2 main things in our system. It's used to buy the names. We talked about the name system. So today, just like you can register a domain name or a username on the internet, you'll use our XCO token to register a name on the blockchain. Initially, we'll be the marketplace for those names, but eventually we'll have others. And the token is also used to pay transaction fees. So, for example, if we're pulling together a D app which talks to 3 blockchains underneath us, we have to pay the transaction fees on those blockchains, and so you'll pay us in XCO, and then we'll in turn pay those other blockchains. And those are very low fees, but they float up and down just to sort of manage the efficiency of the network.
So you have a utility token you're using on the network to payment for services and stuff like
exactly.
this. Is it a capped one? Can people invest in it?
It is. It's a cap. We actually have sort of laid out the right now we're in private sale, so we have a few rounds of private sale. Okay. Earlier rounds have a larger discount. The later rounds have a lower discount, and then there's a little bit left over for public. So a few people, as we just started those conversations, have taken those in. And as we talked about, as the environment changes, we're seeing more and more people who were traditionally equity investors saying, I would like to consider an equity investment, and I also want to buy some of your tokens.
Okay, so you see actually a mix from the interested investors. They both want to do normal investing and also buy some tokens.
Yes, and I think the key word you're using there is invest as opposed to trade.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at it as a long-term investment. They care a lot about the team, a lot about the long-term prospects. And I think anytime people are looking closer at projects and teams, we do better. So I'm happy with that.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. And now we're talking long-term. Let's hear what's the future for Coinweb. What's the next big thing coming up for Coinweb?
We have lots of exciting product plans, none of which I want to pre-announce because better done than better said. But we'll be in production in the first part of 2019, so you'll be able to use the names, use the hyperlayer, use our wallet, including some new features that we haven't talked about. I think we'll have good things to talk about in terms of new people on the team. We have I haven't mentioned it before, but we have something called the 360 Accelerator. So that is, in addition to the great technology, you always need to get technology to the market and to scale. So our view is, unlike some others that have done incubators, where they say, okay, we're going to take a couple of whiz kids out of school and teach them what a business plan is and get them on the blockchain, our view is there's plenty of room for that. We're going to focus on existing businesses that already have tons of customers that have use of the blockchain. So for example, there's a big one around a charity effort where charities want transparency and accountability, so because their donors want that. So we can help them get on the blockchain. They have literally tens of millions of users that use their system today. Of course, any of those users that use that platform end up using our platform. So selfishly, we get immediate scale on our platform. We have terms agreed to with about half a dozen. You and I were talking earlier about Asia. Really exciting trip we had through Asia, where there's many more candidate companies for all kinds of businesses there, and we're going to have to be very choosy about who we're able to pick, because in the first year we want somewhere between half a dozen and a dozen for the first round, but we want to aggressively expand that as we find great candidate companies that are a good fit with our platform. It's a win for them, they get blockchain. Win for us, we get scale.
That's the thing. And where do you see, if you have to see it in a positive scenario but also realistic, where do you see Coinweb in 10 years?
Well, I think in 10 years the blockchain will be in a very different place, and I think it'll be a real robust platform with real robust applications, and my hope is that people will look back in the same way that they look back on, for example, what Netscape was able to do for the early days of the internet, which led it to mass adoption, or what Apple was able to do with smartphones, or what Microsoft was able to do with personal computers, that we were a key player in making that mainstream. And all those companies exist today and are very valuable companies that are able to do other exciting things. So there's lots of cool
that's actually what you're looking for.
Exactly.
So I'm here with Coinweb, a very ambitious project, and Mike CONTE, the CTO and co-founder. And Mike, it was very nice to talk to you.
A pleasure.
Thanks for taking the time, and I hope the best for Coinweb in the future. And if the viewers want to check out Coinweb, where should they go?
They can go to our website, coinweb.io. We also have a Telegram channel, Twitter feed, however you want to find it. Start with a website.
I'll put the links in the bio.
Fantastic.
But thank you, Mike, for this. And out there, everybody, thanks for watching. This is Gordy and Mike CONTE from Coinweb.
Thanks.